So, today we're going to talk about making objects. And I was inspired by these two little dudes. Somebody ducked my office a couple of years ago. So, I now have thousands of rubber ducks in here. Well, okay, maybe like 500 rubber ducks in here. Anyway, point is, I was inspired by the ducks to make a duck battle game. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the base of that right now, and over the course of the next couple of conversations about objects, we'll expand on this a little bit. For right now, I'm looking at a class main. I've just started a new project. I'm going to hit run on this. The only thing this is supposed to do right now is print out that we're talking about objects today. Okay, so what's an object? An object is a member of a class, and a class is kind of a abstract idea. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make the abstract idea of a battle duck, and then I'm going to make a couple of instances of battle ducks. Those are going to be objects. So the abstract idea of battle duck is a class, and then the members of that class are objects, also sometimes called instances of that class. So let's go ahead and show you how to do this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here to this source folder. I'm going to hit new, and I'm going to make a Java class. And my Java class, I'm going to call battle duck. Now, I've got this public class, battle duck, that's created now. I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to go ahead and throw in a couple of Java docs here. Oops, did I put the wrong slashy on that? I put the wrong slashy on that. All right. So my class battle duck is going to be for describing everything that I need to keep track of as the kind of game runner about a battle duck and everything a battle duck can do. So my kind of first things are going to be to say this is a class to describe a basic battle duck. Okay, so first things first, what do we need in a class? So the first thing we're going to need in here are some class variables. And in our case, the class variables I'm going to want are going to be things about my battle duck. So I'm going to keep track of, let's see, I'm going to have a string that's going to be color that I'm going to set by default to yellow. So every battle duck created is going to be yellow by default. We'll have some cases. Actually, you know what? Let's take this initialization out. Let's just go ahead and declare, these are our class variables. We're just going to declare some class variables. I'm going to make another string that's going to be the name of my battle duck. I'm going to have an integer that's going to describe the weight of my battle duck. And then, what else? I'm going to give another integer that's going to be hit points. Let's see, what else might we need to keep track of? I'm going to start with that. I don't want to get too complicated here. Let's start with these guys. And let's go ahead and throw an access modifier onto all of these. So I'm going to want these all to be, oops, that wasn't helpful. That was a very unhelpful autocomplete. All right, so I'm going to throw private on each of these. And the reason for that is that I don't think that these ought to be modifiable outside of the class without some specific reasons. So private basically protects them from change by other portions of the program. That basically, for right now, is for me. It's just to remind me that I really should be careful with these things. All right, so our next thing we're going to need to set up is we're going to need to set up a constructor method. And so our constructor method has to be public. And the reason our constructor method has to be public is otherwise we couldn't make things. So our public method for our constructor just needs to have the same name as the class that we're in. And it doesn't need a return type. So you'll notice I didn't put void or int or double or anything right here. That's because the object that this is going to make is going to be a battle duck. So it's automatically returning one of itself. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to put in some setting of these things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up what is it that I kind of expect to get when I make a battle duck. So when I make a battle duck, I'm going to expect to set the name, the weight, and the hit points. I'm going to kind of use weight as a... you know what? Let's rename that weight field. Let's go ahead and call that thing damage. Okay, so I've got my battle duck. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to expect that when I create a battle duck, we should expect a string called name. We should expect an integer called damage. And we should expect another integer called hit points. And then in here, when we get those pieces of information, we're going to do this dot, and we're going to go ahead and set our things. So we're going to do this dot name is name. So that's taking the name variable that we got here and attaching it to the specific battle duck. Please note, I don't have statics here. There's a good reason for that. If I had statics here, they would belong to the abstract idea of a battle duck, and I want these variables to belong to the specific battle duck I'm creating. We've been using static a lot up to this point, and the reason we've been using static a lot is that most of what we've written so far has been in main. And when we declare a variable in main, we really probably do mean it to belong to the class main because we're not making instances of the main class. When I make a battle duck, I'm making specific instances of that thing, and then I'm expecting those to have different properties. So if you want the color of each and every battle duck to be the same, that's where you could use a static class or a static attribute. I'm not intending to do that. I'm thinking anything I'm going to keep track of, I'm going to go ahead and make so that it's changeable. Let's see. So I've got this dot name is name. We're going to do this dot damage is damage. Oops. We're going to do this dot hit points is hit points. And lastly, we're going to do this dot color is going to be yellow. So by default, a duck is going to be yellow. And this should let us go ahead and create a duck. I'm going to put one more thing in here. I have a tendency to do this. I'm going to put a public void method that's going to be called sayHi. And this is just basically for me to use as diagnostics. So the sayHi method is just going to essentially dump out some kind of a formatted print that's just going to give all the information about the specific duck that I've created here. So we're going to make this a printing formatted string, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to say, hi, I'm a battle duck named, we'll put a string for name in there. We'll say, I do an integer for damage, and I have another integer HP, and one more sentence will be actually let's put our color here. So let's do hi, I'm a string battle duck name string. Okay, and it's whining at me about some typo. Okay, I'm gonna put a thing there, or a semicolon there, and now here I need to supply those strings in the right order. So we're doing color, we're doing name, we're doing damage, and we're doing hit points in that order. Okay, let's go check and make sure this works, and then we'll add a couple Java docs and play with this a little bit. All right, so next is going to be me making a new battle duck to play with. So the way you make a new battle duck to play with is you say, all right, I want to make a battle duck, and the battle duck I want to make is going to be, let's see, I'm going to call them Yanni. It's the only name I could think of that started with a Y. So Yanni's going to be a, oops, I need to write new. So it's going to be a new battle duck, and he's going to have some properties. So this is the name field. So his name is Yanni. He's going to need a, what else did we need? We needed damage and hit points. So he's going to do 4 damage, and he's going to have 15 hit points. Great. Cool. It's whining at me that it doesn't know how to spell Yanni, but whatever. Okay, let's test out that he's working. So we'll want to do, oops, we should probably, I'm going to go ahead and give him a lowercase. So then we should do Yanni.sayHi, and we should see Yanni saying hi to us here. So when we hit run, great. We got our yellow battle duck named Yanni. He does 4 damage and has 15 HP. Great, that's formatted, it's looking good. That kind of means that my battle duck is working. So what if I want to make my next battle duck? So let me design my next battle duck here. So I want to make a battle duck. I'm going to call this one Patrick. Oops, and I'm going to lowercase that. And Patrick is going to be a new battle duck, and Patrick's going to be the pink one, right? So I'm creating a yellow battle duck and a pink battle duck. We're going to put in, Patrick is his name here. He's going to do 5 damage, but only have 12 hit points. And the problem is that right now, if I do Patrick.sayHi here, and hit run on this, oops, we are missing a new line at the end of our print. So let's try that again. Okay, so we've got our 2 battle ducks, but I wanted Patrick to be the pink one. Right now he's yellow. That's kind of the case of me saying, by default in my game, I want just ducks to be yellow on average. You know, like a normal ass duck is going to be yellow, but Patrick's going to be a special duck to me. That's why he's going to be pink. Pink, protagonist, Patrick, right? Like, Patrick's the duck I'm going to play as. So Patrick is a pink duck. So what I need to do is I need to find a way to make Patrick pink. So this is where method overloading comes in handy. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the battle duck constructor. That's what this thing is called. So let's go ahead and note that here. So it's called a constructor because that's the thing that actually makes objects. And this one, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add one more argument. So this is going to take a string that's going to be called color. And on this one, instead of making it yellow, we're going to go ahead and say, all right, most of the time when I make a battle duck, it's just going to be yellow. But sometimes, if I give a 4th argument and supply a color, I just want you to attach that into the color field. So that's going to let me do this. I'm going to go ahead and add another argument here, and we're going to add pink right here. Now, Patrick is going to be a pink battle duck after we're done, because Patrick uses the pink battle duck constructor, and Yanni uses the default constructor, right? Patrick uses the constructor that requires a color, and Yanni just uses the regular one. But they're still battle ducks. They still have all the same properties. Those properties are slightly different between the 2 ducks, right? Patrick does a little more damage, has a little less health. Yanni does a little less damage, has a little more health, whatever. But this is our 2 ducks created. So what if we wanted to change things in the ducks? Right, so like if one of the battle ducks is fighting another battle duck, we might have to change how much health that battle duck has or how much damage it does. I'm hoping that over the course of the game I'll have like power-ups and loot and stuff. So I might need a more complicated structure later. For right now, I just want to say, what if I needed to change something? So if I need to change something, this is where we get into getters and setters. So let me do a little commenting first because I've got a little bit of code here and I just want to make sure we've got everything. So this is overloaded constructor with color as an option. So I'm going to go ahead here and quick just add some Java docs, right? So I've got the one Java doc for my battle duck, but I don't have any about the constructor. So let's go ahead and put those in. So, okay, parameters we've got, it already populated those, great. I'm just going to throw in I'm going to just go ahead and say that this is a constructor for a battle duck. And then I'm essentially going to copy this, paste it in here, and just add the parameter color. Okay, and then we can go ahead and add some notes. So note's going to be the name of the battle duck. Damage is going to be base damage done by our battle duck. Hit points is going to be, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to write that one. These two guys are the same, so I'm going to go ahead and toss those in here. And on this one, I'm going to just add that this is the overloaded constructor. And we're going to say, we're going to add to this one that the default color is yellow. Okay, so we've got our Java docs written in. If we go into main quick and hover this guy, we get information there. If we hover this guy, we should get the different information. I guess I really should fill these in. So, HP of the battle duck. HP of the battle duck and color of the battle duck. Okay, so I've got my two constructors now that have their full tooltips coming up. That's awesome. That's exactly what I want. I've got say hi. Right now that doesn't do anything, or doesn't give me a tooltip, so I'm going to need to go ahead and add in my Java doc for that one. So this is just a diagnostic method for checking a battle duck's stats. So that's just me saying this is how I want to know what's going on with a battle duck. We could override the toString method. That would be a good thing to do here. So I'm just going to add myself a little comment here. And I'm just going to say override the toString method with something like this. Okay, so to-dos are a nice tool. They just give you something like a goal to reach later. There's a number of software packages that will let you keep track of to-dos in code. So this is a really common thing to do. All right, let's go ahead and create some getter and setter methods. So what a getter and a setter method do is they let you modify our private variables here. So the one we're not going to write a setter for is name. We're just going to leave that one alone because I think once you create a duck, its name should be its name. So let's go ahead and create some setter methods though for the other variables. Okay, so these methods are going to have to be public, and these are going to let me kind of modify variables in here. So we're going to, let's see, let's go ahead and make some getter methods. Let's call this get name. So this is going to return a string. It's just going to return the name out of our battle duck. You'll notice I don't necessarily have to use the thises. The thises are referencing this particular object. In the case that there's no ambiguity in your particular method, it's fine. In the case that you're setting variables or something, it's usually a good idea to use those thises. Really, honestly, you should probably just use them all the time. It's really maybe a better idea, but sometimes you'll see people leave them out. So you could absolutely leave this out. So this gets our name and returns it. We could make another one that makes sense. So let's make a public integer method called get hit points. This is going to go ahead and probably try to autocomplete this for me. Maybe not. All right. So the thing we want to return is going to be this dot hit points. Great. Depending on how your game or program is structured, you may have more or less of these. I'm going to go ahead and make some. So these are getter methods. I'm going to go ahead and make some setter methods. And then we'll make at least one more method. So in order to make a setter method, let's say we wanted to be able to modify the color. So let's make this a public method that's going to return nothing. And we're going to call this set color. And set color is going to take a string. That's going to be new color. And we're going to do, actually, you know what? Let's call it color. That'll make it ambiguous so we can have an excuse for doing this dot color equals color. Okay, so now what we've got is we've got a set color method, so we can change the color of a duck. So let's go ahead and execute some of those. So let's do a system out print line, and let's print off Yanni's color. Oh, I didn't make a get color method. Let's go make a get color method. So public get color, there we go. Auto-completed, great. Neat. That's one place where I'm kind of fun with autocomplete. So let's call get color. And then let's do Yanni dot set color, and we'll make Yanni red. And then we'll do, we could just call the get color method, but let's actually call Yanni dot say hi again. So we'll get Yanni to tell us what color he is now. He'll also tell us everything else about him. So let's run this and see what happens. All right, so we've got a yellow battle duck named Yanni. And then after a bit here, we got our info about Patrick. Great, that's coming from patrick.sayhi here. Then we have line 11 is printing out Yanni's current color. Then we're setting Yanni's color to red. And now he's a red battle duck named Yanni. We probably should have made that a lowercase r just for clarity. But now we have our red battle duck named Yanni. Great. I'm going to show you one more thing. So the one more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and in between these. So I like to keep my getter and setter methods at the bottom because I don't need to look at them very much. So I'm going to make here another method. And this guy, I'm going to include a Java doc. And we're going to make this a public method that's going to be void. It's not going to return anything. And it's going to be called, nope, not setDamage. It's going to be called damageDuck. And it's going to be expecting to get a battle duck called, I'm going to call it other, calling it, I'm going to actually call it, sorry, I'm going to call it target. I think that'll be clearest. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to say that this has a parameter, target, and we're going to say this is the battle duck to get damaged. This is essentially an attack method, right? But I don't want to write a full-fledged attack method because I don't want to get into writing a lot of narration right now. What I want to do is just like, I want to actually change something about the target's health. So this is going to be, so if I'm describing this method, I'm going to say do damage to the target duck. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about how we're going to do this. We're going to do this by doing target dot. Let's try this the easy way. So let's do target hit points minus equals this dot damage. So this should just take the hit points of our target and deduct damage from it. So let's go in here, and we've already got Yanni saying hi a couple times. So we'll do Patrick dot damage duck, and the duck we want to damage is Yanni. And then we'll go ahead and we'll call Yanni say hi here at the end. And let's see what we get. All right, so Yanni is a red battle duck who does 4 damage and has 15 HP. And then Yanni is a red battle duck with that does 4 damage and now has 10 HP. He has 10 HP because I damaged him using this damage duck method, right? So we could put some narration in there. That would be a perfectly valid thing to do, right? You must keep track. Make sure that when you say something's happening in the narration, that you do that same thing to the duck or whatever. The place where this comes up is if you're doing random damage rolls. Sometimes what I see students do is they'll have a line of narration. So they'll essentially have a system out print line above this. So let's throw one in here. So let's just make this a more robust attack method. We'll do, let's do a printf here, and we'll say, we'll grab I can type, I promise. So essentially what I'm going to put here is I'm going to put something like Patrick did some damage to Yanni. And then I want to kick a new line. And then let's go ahead and put in our things. So that first string should be this dot name. The second string, or the second item, should be this dot damage. And the third thing should be target dot name. So let's go ahead and see how that works. So when I hit run on this, I should see Patrick did 5 damage to Yanni. Great. Cool. We're all on board with that, I hope. Now, kick is, if you're using a random, what I sometimes see happen is you'll put here a random number, right? So you'll generate a random number and put generating that random number here. Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and incorporate that. So in order to incorporate some randomization, I'm going to go up here and I'm going to import java.util.random. Right, so that's getting the random class from the utils library. And then we're going to go down here and we're going to say, okay, so instead of doing this.damage, I'm going to do, whoops, I need a random. Should be able to just do this, right? Random dot, no, what the hell? Oh, I need to actually create an instance of the random variable. So let's do random, random is a new random. I find the way this is formatted to be just a little bit awkward. There's probably a better way to do this, to be honest. So let's do next int, and our next int in this case, we're going to go between, so remember this takes bounds, right? So we'll go from 1 up to this dot damage. Okay, and then you might be tempted to copy this down here. Okay, now here's the deal. Let's run this and see what happens. Oops, that's not the file you run. You run main. So let's run main and see what happens. Okay, so notice here, it says Patrick did 4 damage to Yanni, and what actually happened was Yanni took 2 damage. So the reason for that is that my random number happened twice. So when we look here, we had a next int right here. So that's getting a random number to put in the narration. And then this is getting a different random number to put into the actual subtraction of hit points. So got to be careful with this. Got to be careful that your action actually matches your narration. It's really important. So what we're going to do is we're going to do something like, say, damage equals, and we're going to go ahead and grab this guy. And there's one thing I should probably change here. I need to remember to add 1 to this bound. I forgot to do it a second ago, and so I was only doing 1, 2, 3, or 4 damage, in spite of the fact that Patrick should be able to do 5. So that's because this bound is exclusive, right? So here's where I'll put my damage in. Oh, and we probably shouldn't have a field named damage here. So let's go ahead and say that this is our damage roll. Nope, that's not how you name things in Java, Joe. Okay, so we've got our variable called damage roll, and we're going to go ahead and drop that in here, and then we're going to drop that same variable in here. Why are we complaining? We're complaining because that doesn't have a variable type, so we'll call it an integer. Okay, cool. So I think this ought to work. Let's go check. So let's run this. And we did 3 damage that time, and we went from 15 to 12. That's correct. We did 2 damage this time. We went from 15 to 13. That's correct. We did 4 damage. We went from 15 to 11. We should keep going until we see both a 1 and a 5. So that did 4 damage. That did 2 damage. 3, 5, cool, and we should be able to see a 1 here sometime. Oh, I'm seeing lots of 5s. Man, Patrick is hitting hard. There we go. There's a 1. Okay, so we've seen all the damages that we were expecting to see. I think this is probably working. This is not the best testing method, BT dubs, but whatever. Because I modified the way that this is, the way that this works with narration, I should probably just call this attack duck. But I'm going to leave it for right now. So what do I have to do here at the end of my little coding session? So at this point, I've got my basic objects in. I think I've shown you how they work a little bit. I've showed you some getters, some setters. I've shown you how each member of the class can modify the other members of the class. I think this is probably enough for now. In order to finish this off, what we should do is we should really spend a second and go ahead and push this to the cloud. So I'm just going to add these to the end of my videos here. So we're going to do a little version control. So I haven't created a Git repository for this yet, so I'm going to go ahead and create a Git repository for this. And then I'm going to go to GitHub, and I'm going to create a new repository. And my repository name is going to be Java Object Intro Lecture. And I'm going to create a repository for this. And then I'm going to take that. I'm going to go ahead in here. I'm going to start a commit. So we're going to commit everything. This is going to be create, you know what? I'm just going to call this an initial commit. We're going to go ahead and commit that. Let's see, I'm not seeing any warnings in my code. Uh-oh, I'm seeing some warnings. All right, let's go look at our warnings. So let's see, name may be final, damage may be final. Okay, because I didn't create setters for those, it's warning me that I may have intended to create those as constants. That's fair. Am I going to create setters for those? I'm going to want to modify damage for sure. So that one definitely doesn't want to be final. Am I going to want to modify the name of a duck as I go through the game? Maybe. I can think of a case where I might want to. As the duck levels up, I might add some honorifics or something. I could do that as a separate field, or we could do, you know what the hell? Let's make this name string final. So final means that we're not going to be allowed to modify this. So I'm going to go ahead and make that final. That's going to let it be modified in the constructor, but nowhere else. We never used getName. I think I'm basically okay with that. And we never used get hit points. I'm also basically okay with that. So those guys didn't get used. Not to say we won't use them in the game, just to say we didn't use them. I made a change. So I'm just going to go ahead and amend my previous commit here. Okay, so I've still got some warnings. I'm going to go ahead and ignore those. And you'll notice it gave me that thing about a to-do. That's great. I should have gotten a to-do. We've got a whole bunch of typos because battle duck isn't a word, but whatever. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and push this. So we're going to define our remote. We're going to go ahead and point it at the Git repository that we just made. And we're going to go ahead and push that. So after this, I will now have a working little demo of a couple of objects pushed to my Git repository so all y'all can see it. And we'll come back to this thing and we'll make a new branch off of it when we start adding more features to objects. And then we'll build this game out a little bit. Thanks for watching. I will catch you guys on the next one.